Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Matthew Cornelius, the Managing Director for Federal Industry at Workday. Matthew, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Great to be here.
And as you know, the development, the upskilling, the planning for workforce development at federal agencies is an ongoing challenge. It's on the high risk list, workforce development at the GAO for many, many years. And so people have the understanding, I think, or the inkling that data-driven strategies can help improve that whole spectrum of things you need to do, plan the workforce, and then make sure the workforce has the right skills and so forth. So give us a sense of what a strategy should look like nowadays, such that you can use data for these different workforce development, workforce activities.
Yeah, it's a great question, and Workday has been solving these types of challenges for our commercial customers, for our state and local customers, and for our higher education customers for many years. But we're relatively new in the federal space, and it was actually a great time to be coming in because the President's management agenda has laid out very clearly from early on in the Biden administration that the workforce is a key priority. And that's not just the workforce that folks have today, but it's how are we planning to make sure that we have the right workforce in the coming years and decades to deliver on federal missions. So, we have aligned our strategy in federal to the President's management agenda, right? So part of that is working with agencies to help them break the data that they currently have out of all the silos that sit in all of these bespoke systems that they have, bring those into a single platform so that CHICOs, CIOs, cabinet secretaries can have a comprehensive look of their workforce, right? And that's job descriptions, that's structures within program offices, that's training needs, that's where folks are in their federal journey, right? And so we want to give agencies, and we do provide through Workday's core HCM platform, the ability to look at a single employee from job application and going into the federal workforce all the way through hopefully what is a very happy retirement for that person. So we can see it at the individual level, but we also see it at the enterprise level. So our system allows agencies to have that core visibility because without that, you can't really do the planning, right? You're sort of looking around in the dark. And as someone that used to be a federal employee and spent a lot of time in lots of bespoke applications, sort of, requesting leave or doing a personnel action request or checking my leave balance or whatever, like all of these HR transactions are so siloed so that they're not in one place that managers, the core SES, political officials can have a comprehensive look. Mm-hmm. They're sort of just sputtering around in the dark, and they can't make the strategic decisions they need from a workforce standpoint to drive their mission outcomes and achieve what the administration and Congress would like to see.
And for each agency then, with a different set of applications, there's no one single list of data sources you can really use that everyone could benefit from.
Correct. Yeah, it's just been built up over years and years of a lot of the bespoke systems, right? You'll have a lot of these systems integrators or companies that have been in and around the federal government who will go in and just build one-off applications or design one sort of information architecture that meets a particular agency's need. Workday comes at this from a very different perspective. We have a core HCM platform that allows the ingest of all data that agencies have from any IT systems, any HR systems, any payroll systems to come into the Workday platform and to give enterprise visibility to managers and to employees, right? Employees manage their work on Workday as well as managers managing their workforce on Workday. So being able to do that and offer a single seamless solution for a lot of these executives gets them very excited. I think one of the challenges that we see, but also the real opportunity space that we see, is when folks see Workday, they're so amazed by the capabilities that we bring to bear that we have to then give them the path to get away from all of these legacy systems and legacy applications into Workday. So as we mature our federal business, as we bring our offerings to a lot of the federal agencies who are excited to get us, the next step for us to help agencies meet that mission is to show them the path from legacy to the future, not just in the technology space, but also for the workforce planning and data that they need.
And what are the types of data that you need to be able to have a comprehensive view of the workforce, both again from the enterprise level and from the individual that might be needing services and so on? what all has to be in there specifically?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It would take us a much longer interview to go through all those one by one. But I think the Office of Personnel Management laid out a lot of that in their data strategy. We're coming up on about a year since the OPM data strategy was released, and it was a very thoughtful and strategic document, right? We have to look at this from multiple layers, right? We have to be able to have conversations with individual employees to see what their needs are, what their desires are, how they want to be trained, what they expect their career journey to look like. And then to paint them a picture for how they get there, right? We have to be able to give managers visibility across their current teams and the composition of the current structure of folks that they manage, and think about what that means as their budgets come out and how that ties into their workforce needs. We also get to work on financials, right? Like Workday is offering its core HCM platform into federal agencies now, but we will also bring along payroll and financial work. So, the two most important aspects that any company needs to manage and care for more than anything else are their people and their money, right? And so being able to take, we're obviously in very uncertain times when it comes to the budget scenarios and spending in Congress, and that has a real impact, right? Not just on federal pay, but on how the structure of agency workforces are going to roll out as the years come. So, I think when you look at all of this, it's not just individual employee data, right? It's not just leave balances. It's not just your paycheck that you get every 2 weeks. There's so many other data elements within the agency ecosystem that feed into how people are managed and how they do their day in, day out work. So having all of that visibility is a challenge, but it's also a real opportunity, because once it is there, it allows for truly thoughtful, strategic, data-driven decision making that all agencies seem to be very thirsty for.
Now, you mentioned some of the statements that employees might have made about what their career goals are, what they'd like to do, and financial data. So it strikes me there's a lot of data formats, some of it unstructured.
Yeah.
Just from a technology standpoint, how do you ingest, you can ingest it, but how do you make it work together?
Sure.
So that all these different disparate types of data make sense?
Exactly, and we're having those conversations not just on an individual agency level or a prospect or a customer level, but we're also having them at the enterprise level. And when I say enterprise, I mean sort of the government-wide level, right? Like, we are aligning all of Workday's capabilities up to OPM's data classifications and regulations and rules and procedures that they have. On the financial side, we're doing the same with the Treasury Department, right? We can do this for our commercial customers very easily, but when you come into the federal space, you have to comply with all the Treasury account work and then all of the OPM regulatory data when it comes to HR. So that is, we are heavily involved in those conversations and being able to think about this from a policy standpoint, from a process standpoint, and from an implementation standpoint. And I'm very happy with this administration, because OPM, Treasury, GSA, DOD, all of these agencies are very open to these conversations, right? They're not shying away from the challenges that they have. And not only do they want to see if Workday or any of our competitors' technology works, but they want to know how we're going to be able to solve their problems. And so part of this is opening up those lines of communication at the senior level of agencies, and then also to be able to get in and do some pilot work and understand individual employees or individual teams and how they function. So being able to look at it from both the top down and the bottom up is providing a lot of insights for us in how we can help solve challenges and bring solutions to bear that meet the needs that agencies have.
But there's a technical function in there such that data can be integrated even if it has disparate types and even if it's unstructured?
Absolutely, yeah. As someone that used to work in the Office of Management and Budget and worked on a lot of legacy IT issues.
Talk about unstructured.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a whole other interview, Tom. But there's one of the things I think as a company we are coming to understand more acutely as we move deeper into the federal market and pick up more customers and work with more prospects is it's not just about the solution that Workday offers. It's about understanding that IT environment that agencies have, right? I've seen those up close and personal because I've helped oversee and prepare agency IT budgets, right? That's a big part of why I'm here at Workday, not because I believe in the product and the value we can provide to federal agencies, but because having that on-the-ground work at OMB, at a General Services Administration, at the Treasury Department where I used to work, understanding where all of this technical debt is, where all the agency silos are, like all the data silos, all the IT silos, it's critical for us to be able to actually meet the needs. It's one thing to articulate the problems and the challenges that agencies have. It's another thing to be able to offer up solutions, and not just bespoke one-off solutions, but enterprise capabilities that help agencies address all of these challenges in one time in one system. And so that's going to be good for us. It's going to be good for agencies as budgets start shrinking over the next few years, right? If they're not spending so much money keeping all these legacy systems up to date, and they're able to make better data-driven decisions on a platform like Workday's HCM platform, that's a win for us, that's a win for agencies, and that's a win for whoever's in control of the government this year, next year, or the next decade.
And just briefly, do you need to have a data officer to help you with all of this? Because that's what you hear all the time. Well, you can't do data-driven applications. You need a data officer.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the critical pieces of legislation that's happened over the past decade has been the foundations of evidence-based policymaking, which created CDOs at all agencies, right? And I think for us, when we go in, folks hear about Workday and they think, we are a human capital company. So all we want to do are talk to chief human capital officers, or federal managers, and we do, and their insights are important. But if we're not also bringing in chief information officers, chief data officers, chief acquisition officers to know how customers traditionally buy us or bring us into agency environments, we're missing out. So part of our data silos that we're trying to break down is making sure that we're getting the right people at the right agencies to come together so we can have comprehensive and thoughtful conversations, and we're not just hearing one-off challenges from someone at an agency. So I think having CDOs at the table has been critical. The CDO Council has done a lot of great work on data challenges, centralizing data, getting out of the silo aspect, and getting more enterprise-level visibility, and we're very bullish on where they're going to go in the future.
All right, on that note, we're going to take a short break. We are speaking with Matthew Cornelius. He's the Managing Director for Federal Industry at Workday. I'm Tom Temin. This is Federal Insights, sponsored by Workday here on Federal News Network. Welcome back to Federal Insights, sponsored by Workday here on Federal News Network. My guest today is Matthew Cornelius. He's the Managing Director for Federal Industry at Workday. I'm Federal Drive host Tom Temin. All right, so let's begin from where we left off in the first segment. We have this data ingestion in your platform, the HCM platform, and you have some level of integration of the data. Then you really need new applications to take advantage of integrated data, which your legacy applications cannot take advantage of because they have their own data. And so tell us what the environment now should look like in terms of the different views that people may have. You've got an HR department view, but you have a program manager who's really responsible for the people, and then you have the individual employee view. So tell us how that works.
Absolutely. What we say at Workday is if you can Google, you can Workday, right? So if I could pick up my phone and show it to your camera right now, I have one application on my phone that is Workday on Workday, right? That's how we manage ourselves the same way our customers manage themselves. And I can see my entire team, I can see my leave balances, I can see my paycheck, I can see our wellness functions, I can see our HR notices, I can see personnel action requests that I need to take, approvals for folks that work for me or work on other teams that I have to approve. It is the most seamless experience I've ever experienced. And this comes back to where we are when we're trying to get into the federal space. When you have a legacy IT environment that has all of these systems, all of this data, all these back-end integrations that are trying to filter it in, it's a very uncomfortable experience. I mean, I've lived it, and a part of the reason I'm here is to help solve that, right? Because I know that federal employees deserve better and they want better. So for us, all of the applications that you use if you're on Workday come through our platform, right? We have, we need to, if we're going to get your paycheck and you're going to be paid by the National Finance Center down in New Orleans, right? We have to integrate to that to make sure that you don't miss your paycheck every 2 weeks that you're expecting. Or, if your health benefits, we're going to have a Cloud Connect integration that goes to OPM so that they can make sure that you can, get your health benefits and sign up when open season's starting here very soon, federal employees. All of that is very intuitive to our platform. And when you see that, you can see your team. When I remember this having been a federal employee, like just trying to get an understanding of the organizations I worked in, like what our org chart looks like, right? You can do that in Workday from day one. You can see everybody in your entire universe, in your program office, in your HR office, your politicals at the top of the organization. So the way this has been built, we have built the product from a customer first mindset, and learning about their challenges, learning about especially their data challenges, and understanding how we break down those silos, how we bring everything into the single data hub, how we make that data visible to people when they need it, right? Because not everybody needs access to all the data, so you have to have the right permissions and the right access. But we're already solving that for the many federal customers that we already have, and as we continue to expand, we'll do that for others. And so it's a very exciting time, and because you see the administration from a policy level and a priorities level putting effort behind this, you see that Congress really cares about this as they're starting to think about skills-based hiring and some of these other sort of broader kind of HR initiatives in the federal space. Workday is there to support all of that and to make sure that regardless of the priorities, we're there to meet them and to do it in a very easy and seamless way.
And you went by this one a little bit quickly. I want to pull on the string a little bit of the data security and the PII implications. Sure. Because if you're pulling from, say, the National Finance Center, that's payroll information.
Absolutely.
And there might even be health information, connected with individuals. So maybe HR has the right to see that, or you have the right to see your own as an employee, but your colleague next door cannot see it. And there's some things your boss can see but can't see. That sounds like a lot to manage and still protect the data according to federal standards for data protection and PII protection.
Absolutely, and security is one of the core components of everything that Workday does, right? For every customer, we know that the information about their people and their money are the two most prized possessions, right? So making sure all of that is secure, if they're providing that to Workday, is our number one principle and priority. And for us, we are FedRAMP. We went through the FedRAMP process. It's my understanding that we were one of the fastest SaaS companies to ever make it through because our security was so good to start with, right? And so we're obviously going to comply with FedRAMP as we expand and move into DoD or the intelligence community. We're going to keep up with their heightened security requirements. But for us, we view security as an inherent advantage of coming to Workday, because otherwise, when you think about all those disparate systems, you think about where the data exists, people just sending spreadsheets back and forth to each other to do payroll information or to do employee transactions or leave balances. That is as unsecure as it could possibly be, right? Because you're relying on the network around it, around any of that data or any of those applications to keep them secure. And so Workday doesn't work that way, and we don't believe that federal agencies need to work that way, and that's part of the value proposition that we have. And why agencies are starting to come to us, because they see that they can actually heighten their security, keep that PII, protected effectively, and still be able to deliver the actual day in, day out inputs that and workflows that agencies need.
All right, and let's get to the idea directly of data-driven decision making, because that's kind of a skill.
Yes.
And even if the data and the applications are there, that doesn't mean someone knows how to make a decision based on it.
Correct.
And so how do you get people to the point of where they know what data they need and how decisions that they might have made can be made differently because of data?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. And the federal government is it's pretty intuitive to them that they know how to collect information, right? It's the management of that information that can be a real challenge. This comes back to something we discussed earlier, right? Having a chief data officer there inside of an agency who can be that central point of contact to understand why agencies are collecting certain information, how they're managing it, how they're updating it, what the data life cycle is, the data hygiene is. It's so incredibly important. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're Workday or if you're any other technology company, you're only as good as the data that you're able to collect and then manage effectively. And so we work through those challenges on a day in, day out basis with commercial customers, with state and local governments, with hospitals, with retailers, with higher education. So we've seen it from pretty much every angle. And while there is plenty of uniqueness about the things that the federal government does, they've got laws and regulations that they need to follow, they're all just slightly shades of gray in how that works. So we're able to bring whatever use case a federal agency is going to have, not just for the data that they need to make those decisions, but how they actually leverage that data effectively. We can point them to folks that we've already worked with, folks that we've already solved that problem for, and give them that pathway to understanding that, right? And it's a tricky challenge, and agencies are now just getting their arms wrapped around that. Like, the technology's coming to bear that helps them with this. There's a focus from Congress on making sure agencies are doing this well. Obviously, the administration from President Biden on down care. So it's a very interesting time. Agencies are more open to having these conversations and are less sort of standoffish because they want to solve these challenges.
And making data-based decisions may often entail what-if scenarios. And it's one thing to be able to query, what have I got here now and what's going on? But trends, how to model what the future might look, being able to ask what-if questions, is that possible in this platform, and how do people do that?
Absolutely, and it's part of conversations we have with our customers all the time, right? They need to know they need to be able to plan out what they expect the workforce of the future to look like, and there's obviously a tremendous amount of uncertainty in that, right? You have budget uncertainty, you have appropriations uncertainty, you have folks that may or may not retire, you have the still lingering impacts of COVID and how that's affecting the work-life balance. That your employees would like to have going forward, and how that's influencing their own sort of professional decisions. So all this information and all of these decisions are happening in real time, and so capability like Workday allows managers, allows senior executives and agencies to constantly rerun those scenarios on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis, so that they're keeping pace with all of those trends, right? This stuff changes every time a new law gets passed that has workforce impacts on a particular agency. Every time an appropriations bill gets passed that either gives agencies more money or less money to deal with workforce challenges and workforce issues. And sometimes they're just very acute scenarios that Congress has identified, that they want to see agencies work on. So like if you're at the Department of Transportation and you've got a major deficit of air traffic controllers, solving that challenge is a very different challenge than just saying we need to improve the cyber workforce, right? Like every agency needs to do that. It's incredibly important, but they're different challenges. And so being able to have those individual use case scenarios for agencies and showing them what that path looks like, it's incredibly powerful. And once folks have access to that information and can do that modeling and that planning, it makes their lives easier, it helps them be more successful, and it helps their agencies achieve the mission more seamlessly.
Sure, that's a good example. There are some functions you can augment with contractors and some you absolutely can't.
Absolutely.
And just a final question, is this a good platform for justifying your personnel levels? I mean, look at the things that have come at the government, the immigration question. The judges all have backlogs now. This is part of the Justice Department of that they can't do in a lifetime. Literally, the number of judges times the backlog, it can't be done in their lifetimes. The COVID relief spending apparatus, even evaluating new technologies at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. They don't have the bodies that know how to do this. Can you maybe use this type of platform to get the resources you need by making a cogent case that even Congress can understand?
Yeah, and we're doing that, so short answer, yes, and we're doing that both in our conversations with committee leaders and leaders in both the House and the Senate, as well as with federal agencies. It's one thing to identify the challenges that you have, it's another thing to solve them, right? And the one thing we have heard time and time again from all of the customers that we're talking to is it takes so long to hire, right? And people continue, this is not a new trend, and I'm sure you've heard it in other interviews, right? If it takes 6 or 12 or 9, 6, 9 or 12 months to hire a federal employee, and it takes a commercial company, 2 weeks or 4 weeks to do it, the person's always going to go take that sure thing, right? Then rather than wait around on a federal agency. So part of what Workday can do is help agencies move through not the application process is what it is, but then move through the actual, identification, providing the job, getting folks onboarded, and getting people ready to start. Because there are so many folks out there that do want to work for the federal government, that want to be a part of the mission. And we have to make it easier for them to do that, and Workday is there to partner with our current customers and future customers to make that happen.
All right, thanks very much. Some great insight here. Matthew Cornelius is the Managing Director for Federal Industry at Workday. I'm Federal Drive host Tom Temin. You're listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, please visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Workday.